Everybody hear me? All right, there we go. Hey, I'm Brigadier General John Evans. I'm the RSOAC CG, and we wanted to kind of start with that video to give you an idea of the kind of things we think about as we look to the future in special operations aviation, but really it can be across the broad spectrum of Army aviation. Let me allow my colleagues to introduce themselves, and then we'll sit down and talk for a few minutes, and we'll be eager to take your questions.
Command Sergeant Major Billy Webb. I'm the RSOAC Command Sergeant Major.
And I'm Command Chief Warrant Officer Mark Meyer. I'm the RSOAC Command Chief Warrant Officer, at least for 3 more days.
So it's exciting for us to be here at this forum. One of the things we brought with us, in addition to the video, obviously, is this industry card, if you will. If you've not seen this, I've got some that'll be available up front here. These kind of outline 10 things that we are asking the best and brightest in industry and academia to get after for us for the future. So I'm not going to go through them at length, but I think it's important that we understand that despite the challenges that we've got in the future, and despite our ability and our desire to leverage technology to overcome those challenges, ultimately what it comes down to is the man or the woman in the cockpit supporting the aircraft on the ground and providing support to our nation's most elite ground forces. So as we take a look at what's going on in the future and we make a conscious shift from what we've been doing in the current fight, which you could loosely, I guess, classify as a counterinsurgency battle, we've got to continue to sustain those core competencies, but at the same time, we've got to plan for more advanced threats that are out there with our near-peer adversaries. And we're happy to talk about some of that today if you'd like to. So with that preamble, I'd like to go ahead and kick it off for any questions you may have with regards to the RSOAC or Army Special Operations Aviation Forces. So you guys think we got it all figured out, I guess. Okay, I'm sorry, over here. Hey, Jen. Yeah, I'm not sure if you're supposed to have a mic out with the audience. Yeah, sorry. I think they're bringing you one. Yeah, we can share up here. You guys keep that one if you...
That's fine. Jen Judson with Defense News. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about some of your recapitalization efforts for your current fleet, Little Bird and everything else. I understand that you have quite a bit underway, so if you can sort of detail where you are with all of those things.
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. So as you look specifically at our rotary wing fleet, we've got... We're in a pretty good position right now with regards to our Black Hawk fleet. We just recapitalized that and moved over the course of the last 5 or so years to the new MH-60 Mike model aircraft. So we've completed that recap, if you would, with brand new airframes, which we desperately needed because our Lima models and Kilo models were very old and showing fatigue. Our MH and AH-6 fleet, we are in the process of planning a recapitalization effort with those fleets. And obviously that's a U.S. SOCOM funded program, but we've got great promise coming forward with the new Block 3.0 initiative for those fleets. Our venerable Chinook fleet, which has served us so well across all of CENTCOM, but in particular in Afghanistan, where the environment just really demands that amount of power and lift, is probably the one that we've ridden the most in recent past. And we are looking with great interest towards Army Aviation's initiative with Chinook Block 2.0. So we are nested with the Army with 2.0. In addition to gaining a recapitalized Chinook fleet out of that effort that will occur over the coming years, we have also shared with Army Aviation some of the things that we believe are engineering upgrades to the Chinook platform, which will expand their capability and take the F model from a 50,000-pound airplane to a 54,000-pound airplane with regards to max gross weight. Made some adjustments with regards to how we're machining the fuselage sections, made some adjustments on moving the landing gear forward with the F model like it is on our G models. So a real good news story, not just for us, but for Army Aviation. And then with regards to our unmanned aerial system fleet, the MQ-1 Charlies, we are the first unit fielded for the improved Gray Eagle, and we'll be doing the fielding, operational test, and evaluation for those platforms beginning in probably the August timeframe. So I feel really good about where we're at based on current funding and priorities, and I feel that we're going to be in really good shape to continue to meet the future needs until we see the Army holistically transition to the next future vertical lift capability. The AH and MH6. So no, we're actually committed to that program, and we'll start transitioning those airplanes in the next 2 years to go to a recapitalization that's going to give us some rebuild fuselages for the aircraft with additional enhancements for safety margin and cockpit management, and then a number of small upgrades that'll give us increased capability in that fleet.
Sir, Brad Snowden from JH&A. I'd like to ask two if I could. One is, how much of a voice do you all have in FVL, both CapeSat 3 and with the new acceleration at CapeSat 1? We're working requirements on that pretty hard right now, and I have a feeling y'all are going to drive some of them, especially footprint. And then the other one is, you mentioned near peer, and I know not the right environment to talk in detail, but do y'all have anything outside of what the Army's doing specifically on the RF threat detection and some kind of countermeasure? Thank you.
So with regards to FVL, we are lockstep with the Army. We've got SOCOM planning teams spread throughout the FVL enterprise right now. And we're working with Brigadier General Rugen's team at cross-functional team FVL to make sure that our requirements are met. And the Army also wants to make sure that the airplane is going to, whether it's CapeSat 3 or some other capability set, meets the SOCOM requirement to the degree that it can while servicing the Army and the Joint Force. So in the past, where we've not been as good at getting ahead of that requirement, which costs us money on the back end, having to modify UH-60s or CH-47s, we're hopeful that we will be able to have a future vertical lift platform that very closely mirrors what the Army will field, and then we'll put mission equipment packages on there as required to speak specifically to our special ARSOA requirements. And the second part of your question was about RF, is that right? Okay. CapeSat 1, again, we're right there with the Army. We're very pre-decisional as the Army looks across all the CapeSats. Right now, the OSD effort is on CapeSat 3. But as the Army explores other opportunities, we're right there with them. We want to be part of that discussion, and we're providing input to the Army on that. And with regards to what we're doing, in the RF spectrum or in the counter spectrum, we're looking across a broad group of waveforms, everything from what's going on in the visible spectrum to IR to RF and beyond. And if you refer to one of the sheets we've got there, we've got an initiative there that we're asking industry's help on to let us get at that, because I can tell you one of the things that neither ARSOA nor Army Aviation can afford to do in the future is continue to strap on some type of system to the aircraft that then has to be integrated into an architecture that's not open, which creates a problem for us from a cockpit management standpoint, and it creates a significant problem for us with regards to the weight that we're putting on the aircraft as you put different apertures and antennas and jammers and things like that on there. We need something that's agile, that operates across a broad group of the electromagnetic spectrum, so that we can get at some of these problems, really hard problems. Yeah, so I would tell you, so the question was, what from a special operations perspective would you like to see fielded first, capability set 3 or capability set 1? You probably won't like my answer, but we want to stay locked in with the Army, right? Because obviously funding is going to follow the requirements of what OSD and the joint program put forward. It doesn't mean that we aren't open to exploring other options, but right now we are focused on that Cape Set 3 effort. If for some reason a priority should shift in the future, we're agile enough to shift with that because we're tracking across all the Cape Sets right now. You guys are letting Jen
Sorry. Please
hog
ask
the
other
microphone.
questions.
No, go ahead.
I wanted to ask where you are with your degraded visual environment efforts.
Degraded visual environment. Yeah, so we are working closely with the Army on that effort, and we are well into the program to field a 2-sensor solution for that, so that we can assist our flight crews in what has been probably the most critical flight regime and the one where we have paid the heaviest price with regards to mishaps and accidents, and that's really in that terminal phase of the approach in conditions where we've been flying in lots of dust like we have in CENTCOM, where we still have a presence. So we're very interested in being able to assist the air crews in understanding what the environment looks like at the last part of that terminal phase. But from a broader standpoint, we're very interested in seeing what we can do in the future with regards to the digital or the degraded visual environment as we think about things from the airfield or point of departure all the way through the terminal phase. So flying through obscurance, whether that's dust, smoke, precipitation, snow, some of those things we're empowered to do right now because of our radar systems with the larger aircraft, but we want to get to the next level so that we can provide the air crews optimal situational awareness to be able to get safely from point of departure to the target area. Did you have a question, sir? DVE program scheduling. You want to talk to that, Scott? You're probably better equipped than I am to talk about the scheduling piece.
Yes, sir. Thanks, sir. Yes, sir. So, sir, last year we got we went from we had a 3-sensor solution. We've gone down to a 2-sensor solution, and we got a critical design review that's scheduled for June. The Army took interest last year, and so they combined monies. They actually did a directed requirement. So SOF is leading the program, but it's a combined SOF and conventional force solution. Initially going to be a QRC with a limited subset for SOF aircraft, as well as the HH-60 aircraft. But depending on how that turns out, we'll decide whether to proliferate it throughout the fleet as that solution, or learn from that and upgrade it from there. So does that answer the question?
Other questions? Recruiting. So I'll let you talk officer recruiting, and then let you talk enlisted recruiting. How's that?
It's since the Army's a little behind on their warrant officer cohort right now, it's a little bit undermanned. We're doing okay. We could always do a little bit better. This year, the numbers are up from last year, and we're moving along. So I'll go ahead and let the Sergeant Major take over.
Yeah, on the enlisted side of recruiting, we're doing pretty good. Obviously, we have the SOAR battalions out there that have a target mission that we set for them, and they're doing really good in trying to make the numbers, especially in the 15 tangos and uniform numbers we need. And they're having about a 70-75% success rate through EGP. But our numbers are only going to be good as Army Aviations as we continue to try to balance the books so both sides of the fence can fight in their battle space.
Yeah, and so two things I would add to that. Number one, absolutely the Army's under-accession of the Warrant Officer Corps has a second stream effect on us because we don't take, generally speaking, initial flight school graduates. We do on occasion, so we don't feel the immediate impact of that, but now we're starting to see the downstream effects of several years of under-accessions, which was, frankly, a function of constrained resources, decisions that were made at the Army level because we could not fund enough pilots. Now we're trying to catch up. General Gaylor and his team have a good plan to do that over the next 5 to 6 years, but we're going to suffer like the rest of Army Aviation on the officer side. I will tell you on the enlisted side, thanks principally to Sergeant Major Webb and others at the Fort Campbell level working with the Special Operations Aviation Training Battalion. We have recrafted how we're doing some of our Green Platoon training to ensure that we are doing the right things, not just the old things, so that everyone who meets the standard has an opportunity to go on and be a Night Stalker. And we've found that to be very useful, and it's helping us without lowering the standard. It's helping us push more people through the program and get them to the line units. Did you say FID domain, sir? Yeah, okay. So we stood up about 5 years ago now, the Special Operations Aviation Advisory Directorate within the RSOAC. We made a conscious decision 2 years ago to move that effort underneath the regiment at the 160th with RSOAC oversight. And the reason we did that is because historically, the Special Operations Aviation Advisory function, or Foreign Internal Defense, FID function, had resided with AFSOC, Air Force Special Operations Command. Well, they don't have any helicopters anymore. So they were having a very hard time continuing to train forces around the world, partner forces, who were helicopter-centric. So a decision was made to shift that burden to the helicopter guys at the RSOAC. We took that on, and what we're doing now is in close coordination with the Global Combatant Commander's priorities and his Theater Special Operations Command, nesting through Special Operations Command in Tampa, Florida, we develop a global prioritization engagement list, which picks out certain elements across the world in all the GCCs that we go and do partner operations with. Now, some of these are very high-end operators that already have vetted aviation forces and are working to build special operations capability that is 160th-like, and they've been doing it for a number of years. That's a great partnership and exchange for us. We're trying to move them forward. We're trying to learn new things from them. And then on the kind of the other end of the spectrum, we've got forces and nations out there that have a very nascent rotary wing capability. And we go in there and we talk specifically about planning considerations, sustainment of the fleets, manning considerations, how they can set up training programs of instruction to try to get them to a better self-sustainment mode. The idea here is, as it works within the Global Combatant Commander's Theater Security Cooperation Plan, we are helping our partner countries help themselves so that we can reduce the burden on U.S. forces in our coalition warfare model and allow them to do a little more of their own collective security. I'm looking at my watch just to make sure we don't have to get off the stage too quick. I will say this, and I think this was borne out if you saw some of the morning sessions. With regards to where we're at in Army Aviation, I just left a luncheon with the cab commanders, and most of the general officer six-pack was at that luncheon. I will tell you that Army Aviation is in great shape with regards to our subordinate leaders. We've got young men and women of quality out there commanding our brigades, commanding our battalions and squadrons. We've got great soldiers all the way down to the individual soldier level doing great work every day, and the demand is high. And we at the RSOAC are partnered with Army Aviation in that endeavor. And as General Gaylor has said, and I think General Gabram talked about it this morning, with regards to the Aviation six-pack, those 6 or 7 of us that get together really on a weekly basis and talk about the things we need to be doing to move Army Aviation forward, we've never seen more synergy or a closer relationship. And coming from the special operations community, I can tell you that's not always been the case. And frankly, we owned a lot of that. We made it hard on ourselves to be part of Army Aviation. But as I tell my team all the time, as goes Army Aviation, so goes the RSOAC. So we are very tightly wed to what Army Aviation's doing, and we're thrilled to be part of what's coming in the future for Army Aviation. So with that said, I'll ask if there are any other questions out here. Anybody? Okay. Well, look, I appreciate the opportunity. The Sergeant Major, Mr. Meyer, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you for a few minutes today. Like I said, we've got some of the industry handouts, is what we're calling them, up here that talk about kind of the 10 priorities that we're looking at for the next 20 to 25 years to get after the really hard problems in the aviation flight regime as we continue to focus on multi-domain operations across the Joint Force. So thank you for your time today. Thanks.